What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Box Out Boys podcast. We're the NBA podcast of the people, your home for lukewarm takes and substandard analysis. I'm Titus Two Shots Dominguez, and with me tonight is Chris, the Stats Man Gorman. Hit him with the stats, Chris.
Hey. Since 2000, NBA teams with a 60-plus wins in the regular season are 6-1 in the finals against teams who they put on against who have 60 or fewer than 60 wins. Jesus Christ. But with the only loss coming from the Mavericks losing in 2006 to Miami Heat.
Revenge is on the menu, is what you're saying.
Sorry, 7-2 is the line. Warriors lost to the Cavs. So
okay, yeah, that also
8-2.
Yeah.
Anyways,
so
awesome stats.
Man, that's a good stat. I actually like that. We can maybe break into that a little bit later. No long boss tonight. He is not feeling good. So, but we had to go tonight because the finals start tomorrow, and it is our finals preview podcast. We're also going to do a little bit of Minnesota. What are we calling it? Wrap up, Minnesota season wrap up. Post-mortem. That's the word I knew there was a word that we had for it. Chris's Timberwolves fell to the Mavericks in 5. So let's go ahead and start there, and then we'll get into the Mavericks Celtics finals, what we're all excited for. How did it feel? I mean, Game 5 really wasn't much of a game there. It ended up being kind of a blowout, which I think maybe was a little bit of a surprise. I think me and Joey said we thought they might, we're going to lose Game 5, but I don't know if anybody was saying blowout like that. Kind of what was your thoughts on it? What was your feeling? And then what were your feelings on the this honestly pretty solid season from the Timberwolves?
Best season in 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joey kind of called it. Going back to the last pod, he did say one of these we are due for a blowout, one way or the other.
Yeah, he did.
And the way Luka came out in that first quarter, hitting 3 logo threes, even got Anthony Edwards talking about in the third quarter how Luka did a step back on him to hit a 33-footer on the right hash, and then pointed at a guy wearing the Edwards jersey. It was just like, this is over. What are you supposed to do?
There's nothing. That's it. It's over.
I was listening to other pods, and they were talking about how you can't let Luka do that. What? Don't go under on a screen when he's at the half court line?
Okay.
Come on. But that last one, Kyle Anderson went under on him. It's like, okay. And the Wolves weren't even bad. It was 18-18. They weren't that bad for the first 6 minutes.
They were hanging in there.
And then just turned off. Then they didn't get Edwards wasn't getting the ball. Towns either wasn't getting or was still missing shots. I saw a lot of Gobert.
It was Gobert early, heavy, and
I liked it. I liked a little bit of it, but it went 2 possessions too far. The first 2 were nice, attack him when he's on Luka. Got an and one out of that, right? Mm-hmm. That was cool. But yeah, I think Jaden was missing some shots. Naz Reid. I rewatched the game, but it's been like 5 weeks.
No, it's been like a week. I was thinking about it right before pod. I'm like, I don't know how much I have on that game because I kind of did start to check out a little bit in the second half, obviously.
But anyways, that's it for the season.
Yeah.
It was the single greatest Minnesota season you could have asked for. I compared them to Purdue in college basketball, and it basically they didn't make it to the finals, but they had their finals. They beat the Denver Nuggets, and they made it beyond what I expected. So did Purdue. So here lies the Minnesota Timberwolves, best season in 20 years. And one thing that is positive is Tim Connelly is going to stay with the team for this season, for the next season. But he has an option to opt out of his contract after next season, which is very unusual for a GM to get yearly opt-out clauses in his contract. But considering the owner situation right now, I don't know who you would want to have it, because Glenn Taylor feels like he'd actually spend money. There have been talks that A-Rod and Mark Lowry would potentially reevaluate Karl Anthony Towns' role if he got full ownership, and there's been talks they want to stay under the cap. Let's let's run it back next year, and then reevaluate after next year. And I'm pretty confident they will, and that's all you can ask for. At the end of the day, third, they're the third best team this year.
Best team?
That's pretty good.
They didn't have to play Indiana, I guess, but I think we can give them the win there.
Yeah. Indiana didn't even really show. Like people were trying to say like, Indiana played better than Minnesota. It's like no, they didn't even win a game. Let's get out of here. So I don't need to go into like Minnesota in October. Like you don't need like Joey with his Andre Drummond. Shout out Joey. Appreciate that top 10 for the Bulls. You're a diehard Psycho fan, but the Timberwolves were a lot of fun, and I'm sure I'll talk about more in the offseason going into the next season. But
yeah, definitely a lot of questions. Yeah. I know for me personally, and I think maybe as a fan of a fan kind of thing here, rooting for you and your team, I really hope they bring it back. Ultimately, they got fairly close. I mean, yeah, you got to get to the finals, in my opinion, to say like you got close, but they got as close as you can come without getting there to the final show. And I think they learned a lot, as a team, particularly Anthony Edwards, obviously. And I think, if they run it back next year, they'll be ready to go. And who knows how the matchups break. I feel like we were talking, about it off air here. I just felt like the Mavs were maybe a bad matchup for them versus like the Nuggets, where had they maybe had a different route where they played the Thunder first instead of the Mavs, and then the Mavs played the Nuggets on the other side of a bracket, sure. And and maybe we're talking about a 7-game series that then sends them to the finals. So.
Well, and also they had to play a game 7. That game 1 was a wash. The Wolves weren't going to win that.
Yeah,
even though they almost did. The great thing was they were close games they just lost, so it's like a learning moment for Edwards.
Yeah,
I did mention last week how this is. I feel like this is Towns' team, and then you immediately were like, "Well, then they're going to lose." And sure enough, like Towns. I mean, they got him and Edwards got 20 points in that game. It wasn't even. It's the craziest blowout because it was a blowout, but like.
I think some of their points came late there in that third quarter. They did make a little push where they got it from like 30 down to like 21 or something.
22. There was a guy at the bar I was at that was like, "It's only 22. Let's go."
Well, I mean,
like 3 minutes left in the third.
Even me, like I was like, I don't know if this is done. I mean, if you get it to 15 into the fourth quarter, I mean, 20-point leads evaporate fairly quickly. It did. I thought it got a little tight, but like every time they did, Dallas made a little bit of a run and push back, and I thought it was going to take a lot to get over it. And it did feel more like Dallas kind of took their foot off the gas and was kind of waiting for the Wolves to kind of throw in the towel, and they never did. Like, to their credit, they really never did until the final couple minutes. Yeah.
It was a respectable beatdown. I don't know. Let's move on.
Let's move on. I think we're good here.
Yeah, let's. All right.
Yeah, we can talk more here in the offseason and what's to come. But obviously, we got the matchup that we're assuming we were going to have last week, and now it's official. It's official. The Dallas Mavericks will be playing the Boston Celtics, who have been here for weeks, it feels like, waiting to see who they were going to play. Like, even since the second round, I don't think anybody thought that anybody was coming out of the East besides Boston. They've been the best team all season. Maybe this sort of late season run here from the Mavs, where they've been, I think they were the best defense after the All-Star break or after the trade deadline. Is that kind of what's the stats that's been going around?
Dallas, yeah. They went 12-3 in the last 15. That's a stat getting thrown around a lot.
Yeah, they've looked great. They look great against Minnesota. I guess just general thoughts here. I'll go first. I think this has potential, and I'll say potential because who knows what happens. I think it has potential to be one of the best finals we've seen in a while. I really believe it. I think this is two really competitive teams. I think these are going to be great games. The storylines everywhere, we can kind of dissect it here as we go forward. But I really do see this as a potentially all-timer, in my opinion. What do you think?
I think you're right. And it's weird because coming into this, when you just look at it on the surface, it's the Mavericks 5th seed. They're a 5 seed, which never happens. It's always a 3. The only time it's happened was Houston on their second, going for the back-to-back when they were a 6 seed, and I forget the other one, but the other team was coming off of winning. I think it was the Lakers. They come off of winning it as well. Yeah. So like this is unprecedented territory. It basically, you can't even look at this team and before March because they're a whole new team. So really the Mavericks have not, or the Celtics have not even played this team. That's how it felt like with the Wolves. The Wolves didn't know what to do. Yeah. They didn't know how to stop it. They figured they had their adjustments a game or two too late. So the Celtics, I definitely agree, especially because we can do some rankings on top players, but it feels like
Yeah.
the general thing is the Celtics are the better team, but Luka is the best player.
Yeah.
No one's really arguing that,
Nobody's
right? And
arguing
like,
that. Yeah.
can we actually get rid of that narrative of, if you have the best player in the series, you're going to win the series.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Ooh, man, it's been good. I know you sent along some questions. So, I mean, you kind of hinted at it there. Who is the favorite? Who is actually the favorite here, in your opinion? Are the Celtics legitimately the favorite? I mean, they've been the best team. I think they're kind of like the Vegas favorite, if you would say so. Do you feel that they are the favorite, or do you feel maybe that people should be favoring Dallas here with the best player?
So Vegas, they're the Vegas favorites for sure.
Yeah,
when you look at any analytic metric, this is like in 2022 when the Celtics played the Warriors. Celtics were supposed to be like 88-point favorite or percent favorites, whatever it was. And it feels like the Celtics should be favorites again. But like the favorite, I think is actually Dallas. I think people who are casual fans, the mass are like looking at this as like, oh, Luka this is his coming out party.
I think, it kind of depends on how you look at it. I mean, like you said, I've been listening to a lot of pods in this week coming up, just trying to get opinions, trying to get thoughts on it. And I feel like the Celtics are the overwhelming favorite, even though everybody has basically said that Mavericks have a chance here. Like, this isn't going to be a walkover. They don't believe. But I do feel that the Celtics are the favorite. I kind of feel like they're the warranted favorite. And maybe we can kind of get into some nitty gritty details about maybe why they should be favored in this series. But I think maybe from your perspective, from the public, the betting public, I think a lot of people are pulling for Dallas, if not, just outright. We want to see Boston lose.
Yeah. You need at some point, maybe we can talk about it now, but where did this Boston fandom originate from? Because you have some explaining to do, considering Boston's been doing this since 2017, and you're jumping on now. So
yes, I think it has been spoken about here in sort of cryptics, and I have not told my origin story of my Boston fandom. Honestly, this starts with my wife. It's kind of a really weird thing. We watched a lot of games, obviously for the pod and stuff like that over the last year and a half. That's kind of how it started. The end of last year, then this year, fully this year, watching, and we watch a lot of national games typically. So like when I have a chance, like Joey watches the Bulls, right? I watch kind of whatever the national game is, and that's a lot of Boston games. So we watch a lot of Boston games. And after the whole Ime Udoka thing, the new coach came in. I do not know why, but Michelle really latched on to Joe Mazzulla. She remembered him playing from college. She's a big March Madness fan, so she remembered him playing
in college. Okay.
Yeah, she remembers him from college. Like she's like, oh yeah, I remember him in college. He played for I think it was Michigan or something, or West Virginia or somebody.
Yeah, it wasn't Virginia. Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, I remember Mazzulla. Yeah, he was cool, and she just liked the story that he came in halfway through this, or was it right at the end of the off season, had to piece his team together. So she just she roots for Mazzulla is how she says it. And then because we kind of watched the team a lot, she rooted for Mazzulla. We just started to like those players, like the team. And then they got one of the other players my wife really loves is the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis. She loves the nickname. She's like the unicorn. So she knows who he is. So then that became it. So then that was it. That kind of sealed it once they got him. So we watched a lot of teams, and I started watching them. Obviously, I'd be like, "Hey, there's a Boston game on tonight. You want to watch?" And she's like, "Yeah." So then I just started watching the team, and then I became a fan of them just by watching them, through osmosis. So that's kind of how it started. Yeah, you can blame my wife, Michelle.
I did not realize that people could become fans of a team because of the coach they hire.
Yeah, she even when we went to the game, we went to see them play. The Bulls play Boston. All she wanted to see was Mazzulla. She did not care about anybody else. She's like, I love Mazzulla. This is great.
And I think what is he, 34?
Yeah, 34, 35. Yeah,
he's pretty young guy. He's kind of a psycho.
Yeah,
but you have to be a
complete psycho.
Yeah.
But no, she loved that story. That's how it started. So then, I kind of loosely became a fan of Boston. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself. I kind of play it up here for the podcast, obviously, you guys, but.
Okay, that's fair.
I do. I'm rooting for them in this series. I really do want them to win, and I think part of it is because I kind of want to be right. And I feel like they've been I've been on them for so long, they should win. But every time I say they should win, my wife yells at me and tells me to stop saying that. Stop trying to jinx them. And I'm like, I don't think I can jinx this team. I think they're fine. But all right, let's get into some debates here. So one of the other questions you sent us was, does Tatum need to be the best player in this series to win? I mean, what is your gut feeling on that? I know I have some opinions on that, but obviously there's 4 great players in this series. Each team has 2. Do you feel that Tatum needs to be the best player in this series, or do you feel like, the Celtics can maybe do it by committee?
No. Yeah, I think they
Okay.
can totally do it in the way of Derek White blowing up for 40 points in the game, Jaylen Brown dropping 52, Porzingis being consistent with a 15 to 20. I mean, the biggest X factor in this game, people are going to talk about Kyrie, but it's really Kristaps. Or maybe
I mean, I think it's
right, because we haven't seen him play. Admittedly, I have gone out of my way not to talk about Boston on this podcast and watching them during the regular season because I can't stand this team. And so I watched Porzingis a handful of times. And I didn't really watch it. You didn't play this playoffs. So Eric Lively's played more playoff games than Kristaps Porzingis, 16 to 13. That's a stat. But I don't know what to expect from Porzingis. Is he healthy? And like
he's healthy-ish.
But he's such a statue. People are like, clowning Gobert being played off the court. What is Porzingis going to be able to do? I'm sure he can shoot, but he's so. I feel like he's so much slower than everybody else on Dallas. Like Dallas with Gafford and Lively, they seem so much faster than Towns and Gobert, and that's why I feel like one of the biggest assets that Dallas had was just get those lob threats, get in the positions so quickly for Luka to throw it to him perfectly. And I feel like Kristaps might be a step slow, and Horford might be a little too old.
Horford is going to be an issue. I will say that as somebody who has watched a lot of Boston, and like I said, I really locked in playoff wise the last series. I'll admit to, even as I had every Boston game on, but I was not 100% focused because nothing felt like a real game. But Horford is going to be an issue, so I'm glad Porzingis is back. I think he gives him rim protection for sure. I do think they are going to try to maybe hunt him a little bit. I just wonder if the other 4 guys on the court are going to make up for that. Kind of to answer that question, I don't think Tatum needs to be the best player. I feel like Luka will be the best player in this series. I don't think there will be any doubt about that after it. I wonder if there'll be much doubt if he'll be the best player in the league. I mean, besides him, it's going to be between him and Jokic for sure by the end of the series. But I think Boston has to have 2 and 3 of the best players, in this series. They can't let Kyrie. You kind of mentioned it there. He's the X factor for Dallas. I feel like Porzingis, like you said, is the ultimate X factor for Boston. Dallas is going to have number 1. Tatum and Brown have got to be some combination 2-3 for Boston to win this series. If Kyrie and Luka are the best players in the series, the 1-2 best players in the series, I don't think Boston can win. And then if you look at like the top 5, there's potential where Boston can have 3 or 4 of the top 5 or top 6. You could say, all right, if it's Luka, Kyrie, and then if it's Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, and like a Derek White or Drew Holiday.
I mean, of the top 7, 5 of them go to Boston.
To Boston, and that's where it starts to get a little bit like overwhelming for me, in my opinion, and kind of why when we get to predictions at the end, that's kind of where I see this kind of going. But if they don't have any answers for both Luka and Kyrie, I don't think there's any way they can. Then that really opens up all of Dallas's offense, like you're saying, with the Gafford and Lively stuff and PJ in the corner, and then it becomes to be too much for them, and those guys are picking your defense apart. When we saw what they could do when they're on like that, so that becomes a question. One of the things that I think is going to be a key factor is Boston's defensive prowess. You said in the question of, is Drew going to prove to be the best defender in the league? Do you feel like maybe he's going to be getting the primary Luka assignment, maybe kind of being a Dort light there, or where do you think he's going to be as far as a defender? Do you think he kind of proves himself as the best defender in the series and maybe the best defender in the league?
He's going to have to be the primary guy. He's going to be like what Edwards kind of was in the last series, where Edwards was able to kind of, he wasn't able. I don't know. It was the Dort's a better comparison.
Yeah, but I mean, Edwards was a solid matchup on Luka. He gave him fits.
Yeah, but he couldn't handle Kyrie. I was trying to say like he
Yeah,
was able
yeah.
to do
They
both.
pulled him
So
off of Kyrie.
Drew
Yeah,
can kind of go on both guys. It feels
yeah,
like the thing with Drew is So I want to do a segment called like questioning experts, and we can figure out a better name for this. But I was
yeah.
listening to the Roommates Show, which is Jalen Brunson's and Josh Hart's podcast,
Oh,
and they were
nice. I didn't know
discussing
that.
whether Rudy Gobert deserved the Defensive Player of the Year,
Stop it.
and the hate that Rudy gets around the
Yeah,
league. And I was kind of thinking like, oh, they're going to kind of defend Rudy here a little bit. They're
yeah,
kind of level-headed guys. They went to Villanova, maybe,
yeah.
and they're just like, yeah, he's kind of a goofy dude. I'm like, like I don't know if he
Yeah,
really
come
was
on.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Because he's
Like, sure,
goofy.
if he's in the paint, I'm not going to go try to drive on him. It's like that's the whole point.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
why you
whole
don't.
point.
And they're like, who really should have gotten it was Drew Holiday. And that's what kind of got me up for this question. I'm like, if really Drew Holiday should have been the guy that got lit up by Jimmy Butler against Miami, So I am going to be laser focused on Drew Holiday this series to see what he can do against Luka, what he can do against Kyrie, because
Yeah,
he needs to
he's
lock
big.
down his opponent for the Celtics to have not a shot, but just to run away with this. If he can shut
Yeah,
down one of those two guys, it could be over. Like
I think you're right, and I think that's critical. So my biggest like factor to me that I think is going to be the bellwether of this series is going to be that defense on Luka and Kyrie in particular. And I think the Celtics have 4 guys that they can throw at them in Brown, Tatum, Drew, and White, where they've got 4 different guys who are all great defenders. Didn't Brown like he leads like guards and blocks or something like that?
that sounds yeah.
It sounds right.
I heard that. Yeah.
So he's nasty defensively. Tatum has got the size. I think that in pinch, I don't think he's going to get the assignment of Luka, but I think maybe end games. He maybe gets like the LeBron treatment on Rose there, where all of a sudden you see him on him at the end of games, and it looks a little different. I think I was watching the Mind the Pod Mind the Pod or Mind the Game pod. There we go, a couple of White Claws tonight. Before this, and they were talking about the different pick and roll defenses, drop, switch, and blitz, and they were talking about that Luka's statistically worse against the blitz, and but that the Celtics don't blitz a lot.
They're all switch.
They all switch.
That's the same thing today. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the worst defenses for Luka. That was the defense he's best against. So I think that's what it's going to be. Can they kind of throw enough different coverages at him with those 4 guys? Where can they switch it up enough, get the ball out of his hands? Can they blitz enough to make it to slow him down? You're not going to stop him. You're not going to stop Luka.
Yeah,
they could potentially stop Kyrie. I think they need to do that. I think they really need to limit Kyrie, and they need to sort of throttle back Luka so he's not just carving him apart, make him work for everything. Then it can start to snowball a little bit. But
the thing with that, what I was listening to that today too, is when they're talking about how switch coverage doesn't work on Luka, it's because typically when you switch Jaden McDaniels off of Luka, then you have Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert guarding Luka. With Boston, you go from Derek White to Drew Holiday to Jaylen Brown to Jason Tatum. It's the same guy 4 times. Yeah. Right? You just have to protect Porzingis. If you can switch on Porzingis, I feel like Boston's going to have a defensive scheme to to minimize that from happening. And so that's where I'm most interested in watching this and see what Boston does, because like, all right, Minnesota can figure it out. Boston, your turn. Like go figure this out, guys. Because Luka is a magician that
figure out what you can do. Yeah. And I really do think this is like a NBA nerds dream. I'll leave the first word off of that because of the chess match that I think it's going to be. I really do think it's going to be okay. Who can make the right adjustments? And the same thing on Dallas's end defensively. Can they cover all those shooters? Can they limit the penetration from Brown and Tatum? And it's just going to be game after game who makes the right adjustments and who can kind of get in their flow, get in their rhythm, and get the other team second guessing.
When you say that, can the Dallas defend everyone on Boston? I think Derek Jones Jr. has a chance of getting exposed this series. He still needs to prove it to me.
All right, I like this.
If he is like this lockdown defender that I've been seeing, because he's doing a lot at the top of the key. He's got some guys on the back, and he's looking really good against Edwards. But I just didn't see this in Chicago. I wish Joey was here to kind of maybe
Yeah, to help with
he saw
this.
it a little bit, but because Derek Jones Jr. Gafford, I kind of saw. I remember seeing some of those blocks and like getting to the dunks. It was kind of fun to see this from Gafford. He's just kind of a more of an amplified version of himself
Yeah.
now. But Derek Jones Jr. is like a whole new person. So I'm really interested to watch what he can do this series.
Yeah, he's going to have a tough assignment. I think he's probably getting Tatum, or is he going to get Brown? I haven't heard of
He just keep switching between the two, right?
Yeah, and
Maybe
then
he would
PJ
take
Brown's getting
yeah
Tatum, I think. Oh man,
PJ Washington, yeah.
PJ Washington. Man, it's going to be good. I do wonder what Dallas is going to do with the 5 out that Boston runs, especially if Porzingis can play. I mean, with Horford, I think they can kind of maybe hide a guy on Horford. I mean, I know he does stretch the floor, but I also like if you're going to say, all right, make Horford beat us, I think you're fine with that.
Yeah,
But
Porzingis can drop 4 3-pointers right in a
yeah,
row. You can't put Kyrie on Kristaps. That's
yeah,
kind of a
he'll take him to the post. It's going to be interesting. So it's good. Oh man, I'm just excited for this series. I think this is going to be a lot of fun basketball. Which matchup do you think is going to be key here? The front court, the back court. I mean, obviously the back court, you got those. What is it? They've been saying the best back court of most talented back court of all time on
with
Dallas.
Kyrie and Luca. And
Yeah,
then Derek Jones Jr. because backcourt's typically 3 guys.
yeah. So they're
That's just the
he's
best
rolled
duo.
in.
Or then you got Drew, Derek White, and then Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the front. That's why when I looked at. That's why I asked this question because I think the front court is more important. Where's Lively at? Lively's kind of the third best player on Dallas, right? And then PJ Washington at the 4 against Porzingis and Tatum. I don't. It's hard to look at this series in just one line, especially with Boston because they're just those 4 guys are so freaking good. Like with I don't know. I can't even talk about this without mentioning those guys every time. But I think the front court's gonna be more expensive, or more important because Luka is like 83% at the rim, highest field goal percentage at the rim in the league, followed by Lively, and I think Gafford was 4th.
Yeah.
And watching the Celtics, they're just in that Pacers series, they just let everything go inside. It felt like they couldn't stop anything in the paint, and so I'm curious how they're gonna kind of change that scheme up to try to stop Luka just going downhill and getting those lobs like he kept getting against Minnesota.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like oddly one of their strategies is like they want to win the math problem of letting them or giving up the 2s and not giving up 3s, which is interesting. But if they're starting to get those lobs from Lively and Gafford and those guys are just in the paint dominating, that's going to open up the 3 for when the defense is going to start to compress for Boston. So I do think that is going to be key. I think you're right. I think the front court matchup is maybe where this series hangs in the balance. Can they stick with Horford and Porzingis, and can they limit Gafford and Lively's production?
Yeah, and the thing is, if you want to math it out, we can do a quick math thing here. So take 10 shots, take 10 2-pointers, make it 80% of the time. Okay. That's 16 points.
16 points.
Right? But then if you take Boston, just chucking up 3s, if they make 40% of them, that's 12 points. So we need another 3. That's 50%. Still, you're losing 16 to 15. So you need to get that inside game down to 60%, 70% to really get Boston to kind of take it over the top. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, this is the most fun series. Honestly, even though I wanted Minnesota because I'm here, I've been fun to go to the game.
Yeah.
You and Michelle would have come up here. Probably not, but it would have been fun.
I think I might have tried it.
Envision that. Yeah, but this is the best series we could have asked for.
Yeah, I think this is going to be fun. What else? I mean, is there any other things you kind of want to touch on, or you want to get into predictions here? I know without Joey, we kind of run through our points quick. So,
well, the one question I liked is this series is kind of like, is this the beginning of one franchise or the end of another? Let's talk through what this means for each team if they win or lose. So if Dallas, let's start with that. If Dallas loses this series, they just come back. They're a top 2 1 seed next year. Them in Minnesota. If they win, then we're going to be getting those LeBron comps, Luka.
Yeah,
Luka is such an underdog in this series. It's really what I mentioned at the beginning that I butchered. One of the teams that did one of the under 60 teams that did win was these 57 win Cavs beating the 73 win Warriors, right? When LeBron was huge dog. So if Luka can do
Yeah.
this, that kind of starts put him in that, like, oh, hey, maybe. So
I
I
think
don't know.
I think as far as like legacy goes or whatever, I can start with Dallas here. I think, I mean, the word's been kind of going around a lot, obviously in pods, like house money or playing free, whatever. I don't love that because I do kind of agree with what the pushback I've heard on that is that, you'd only get so many chances at this, really. You know what I mean? Like, how many times we have had a repeat matchup, let alone a repeat person? I mean, Boston's the only team to make it back in the last, 2 years, right? Or last 6 years. When we've had all these different champions. So you don't know how many bites of the apple you get. So for Luka, this would obviously be kind of like that crowning jewel. This would be very impressive on his resume. I think it would maybe kind of start something there where you'd have to start. The team is good enough and young enough where you'd have to start really kind of looking at them as maybe the best in the West. I do think this might be, I'm hesitant to say this because every time we've bit so many times with when Giannis won, it was like, all right, this is Giannis's era. Then Jokic wins. It's all right. It's Jokic's era. And then now it's, it's just like every time we kind of crown somebody else comes through. But I do think this is a potential of maybe a small rivalry here where they could play this season and next season. Just because honestly, who in the East can really challenge Boston? I mean, next
It'll be
year.
interesting what happens with Philly if they get Paul George or if they draft Bronny. And
Philly's the interesting, and then Bron comes. Yeah, Philly's probably the one team that I would really look at. But Milwaukee's old. The Knicks probably aren't going to be enough when they're healthy.
Orlando,
they're really
could Orlando take another leap?
They'd have to take a big leap. I don't think I think they're a year or two away, or like 2 years away from being really a contender.
So wait, that's what's interesting because I felt like if Boston loses this, it's like, uh-oh, they got to reevaluate. But really,
I mean, if Boston loses, right? I think I go, hey, look, Luka just got us. It would have to depend on the series. I mean, if they get swept or something and it's not even competitive, and Luka just looks like he's terrorizing them, I think then maybe you start to look at something. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think if they lost, it would be in a 6 or 7 game series, and then maybe look at like, hey, look, let's take another crack at it. Our team's good. Porzingis was hurt. I think you can talk themselves into it. If Dallas loses, I think the same thing. You're like, hey, look, they were the best team in the league. We kind of not flukily got ourselves here, but this was a bit unexpected. Let's run it back. Yeah, there's some really great teams in the West, but we feel like we're the best team. I think you're fine. So that's why I potentially see this, being a back and forth, or maybe Boston doesn't make it next year and then Dallas does, or vice versa. So I think these two teams can maybe hold court for a year or two. But then after that, yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is like, I don't know if we're going to see like that LeBron level, Jordan level domination of an era.
We were so spoiled with 8 years of LeBron. People just took it for granted. Boston's is only their second time making it to the finals. They've been to the conference finals 6 times, right?
Yeah.
I agree with your point, especially on Dallas. So they might be too early, but like you got to win this now. You can't just
you got to win it now.
Especially with like Wembanyama kind of just lurking in the background.
We forgot about him.
Kind of like the White Walker of the NBA, where he's coming, he's brewing, he's gonna be. They're gonna become a team that's just gonna dominate, win 50 games, and just run through
the
league. So good. Yeah, now's the time. That's why I'm like Minnesota. They got to do this now. I know Ant's only 22, but like
you got to get it now, man. You always got. And I that is a great point for Boston. In my mind, Boston is in. This is a must-win championship for Boston. I think if anybody, has that weight on their shoulder, I think they've, like you said, they've been there 6 straight times or 6 times. I don't know, 6 straight, but
they've been since 2017. They've been in this championship talk. This window, right?
And they were young. Tatum is still only 26, I think. So which is wild.
Oh, that's crazy. That is
crazy.
Yeah.
And Brown is 27, so like they're in their prime. And we can kind of get into predictions after this, but I think if there's anybody that it's like, hey, you got to win this one, it's Boston, because the East just opened up for them in a way that I don't think it's going to open up again. I think they're going to have a much more.
This is the easiest one.
Yeah.
Right. This is like, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you got to beat who you got to beat, so that all championships are equal in my eyes. I don't think there's like, I don't think there's ones where you're like, all right, asterisks on it or whatever. But they got there. They were able to rest Porzingis for extended period of time. He should be ready to go. You have been the best team. They've got to get it done versus Dallas, who can maybe just see, can they, I mean, they have the pressure of how many cracks do you actually get at this? You got to get it because you're here. Yeah. Versus Boston, who feels like this has been this uphill climb for them to finally get here. But let's get your prediction, Chris.
Yeah. So one thing about this series, so like I'm an NBA fan, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Me too.
I'm a Bulls fan first.
Same.
I came to Minnesota, became a Minnesota fan. But when I was growing up, my favorite player was Dirk Nowitzki. My team was the Dallas Mavericks.
Here we go. I love it.
And I have a jersey that I need to put on that I wish I put on earlier. But these Dallas Mavericks are going to take
it on,
this back.
folks.
And hang on.
He's taking the phones off. I think he's in his shirt. Putting on the Nowitzki shirt, the 41. This is great. Be on YouTube if you're not already.
The Dallas Mavericks will be winning this in 6 games, I believe. It should be maybe 5. I feel weird. I feel weird. But I also said I've been very kind of aggressive with my takes.
I love it.
I had Minnesota in 5. Dallas went to 5.
Yeah.
But I think if Dallas might come out in game 1 and just kick him in the teeth, and if that happens, Boston's going to get scared. Boston's going to get tight, and I think it could be over quick in that sense. I think watching Luka, the guy has no fear. He's been doing this since he was 10 years old. He's acting like a 32-year-old veteran. He's 24, 22. He's so young. And I just think I really believe this is the start of something for Luka Doncic, because I think he's going to be one of the top 10 best players of all time. Not put him there yet, but like he's on that trajectory. 5 first-team All-NBAs in 6 seasons. That's insane. That doesn't happen. So
no.
LeBron is the only person on that list. And I can't even say it without, because I'm a fan of the team, I can't even be like not what's the word I'm looking for?
Impartial?
Not partial. Like I'm trying, but like every time, like Bill Simmons was talking about his pod, he was kind of explaining the series like how I was explaining the Minnesota Denver series, where like if you just look at it, if you just keep staring at it, Boston should win. But it's like I was looking at that for Dallas, Minnesota too. And then I saw Luka just go out and torch them. And it was just like, okay, yeah, Luka's just going to take care of this in the last 2 minutes. So I think Boston's going to have a lot of similar woos that Minnesota had. And I kind of want to say that because I think Minnesota was still one of the best teams, and I want that to be true as well. There's there's a lot of that.
There's a lot of bias in this pick. It's okay, man. I love you to go with your heart. It is, as a slight Boston fan, it is a little bit hard for me to separate that as much. I look at it. I've been looking at this team on paper for a long time, at least this season. I got Boston in 6. I think that's where it's. I think that's going to be it. Although I'm taking 6 because I think this is going to be either a 5-game series or a 7-game series. I don't actually think it'll go 6. In my head, I'm like, it's either Boston's going to win this in 5 or they're going to win it in 7. And at home, it's going to be an absolute barn burner. But so I'll split the difference.
Luka's winning it if it goes to Boston 6 7. I'm sorry.
I mean, that would terrify me in a way. Yeah, I would be like, I would not want to deal with that dude. But just some things that I think Boston can. I just think Boston has enough guys. I think they can solve more problems. I think Zach Lowe is how he put it. Like, they can solve the problems more than any other team that Dallas has faced so far. They have the options, and I just don't know if Dallas can solve all the Boston problems with the spread offense. I think you're right. I think that game 1 is a must-win for both teams. You cannot.
You think for both? I think more for Boston than for.
Well, I think it's in the sense of Boston can't let Dallas get that foothold. If Dallas wins game 1, I think they're taking the series. I still wouldn't. I still would go, like, I would pause. I'd go, I think there's some, Boston can rally. I mean, Boston was down 0-3 and came back to force game 7, one of the only 4 times in history it's ever happened. So, like, this is a resilient team. But I think if Luka gets that edge to him, I think then that best player, in the series wins it. Thing starts to take over. Where if Boston comes out, like you said, kind of just hits them in the teeth, just like the same way like that Dallas could do. I think that sets the tone. I think that would ease them enough where then that tension doesn't build, because I think you're 100% right. If they lose a game or two, or it goes 2-2, it could get real tight there in Boston, and those guys can get real nervous, and the pressure could maybe start to build. I don't think this will be the case. I think they will win this. I don't want to say comfortably is not the right word, but I feel like these will be great games. It'll kind of come down to the last few minutes, with ultimately Boston pulling out 4 of the 7. You know what I mean? I just think they have one too many weapons for Dallas, and I think Dallas just got a good matchup in Minnesota, where Minnesota just couldn't really. They didn't have the personnel to guard Dallas in the way that Boston can. I don't think that they were a better team than Minnesota. I just think they had a few guys that
Luka.
Yeah, they had Luka, but I also think Lively was a guy they really couldn't solve, and they didn't have somebody to put on Kyrie either, like really. So I think there was a lot of that. So, but I would not be surprised at all if Dallas wins the series.
I would just love to see a Game 7 in Boston, where we're looking at the modern day Larry Bird, right, with Luka.
Yeah,
and just having him in Boston just rip the souls out of those Boston fans who watching a different European player just take it from them would be really fun to watch.
Man, if we get a Game 7 in Boston, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, that's it. I honestly, like, at the end of the day, I'm just hoping for a good series.
Yeah, me too.
There is a little part of me that's scared that Luka might get hurt after Game 2. Because there's been talks that he's been hurt, right, this whole time.
Yeah.
And he had a press conference today, and they asked him about his leg, and he said it's not any better. So I'm like, come on. Like, is he just playing that up? Like, he doesn't really have to say anything positive. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm a little nervous on that. Just, if anything, just give me some games. Give me some good games.
Healthy teams. Same with Porzingis, too. I hope it's not something where Porzingis gets hurt, like the calf gets re-aggravated, and then we're talking about, well, what if they would have had Porzingis or, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I really just hope for healthy teams. I want a great chess match of a series with back and forth adjustments. But I will admit, too, there's a part of me that fears that there's going to be an injury to Luka, or he's going to come up hobbled, and everybody's going to do they didn't play anybody.
It'd be the weakest title ever.
So weak, and I'm really bummed about it, because I do feel that Boston is the best team in the NBA right now, and I hope they are able to prove that, kind of by beating Dallas. Prove it, but I think they do need to prove it. You know what I mean? If Luka gets hurt, or if Kyrie gets hurt or something like that, then it's not going to be that. They'll come back next year with the same questions. So it's a very interesting series, man. I'm excited for it. Tomorrow night it starts, and then we got a long
7:30.
Yeah, we got a long lag, and then Sunday's then Game 2, right?
Sunday's Game 2. They get 2 days off, which would have been nice last round.
Yeah.
I don't know why we had to go every other day. This was tired, guys. Like, ugh.
Tired legs.
But whatever.
All right, he'll be fine next year, man. He'll be ready to go. He's gonna train.
I'm excited. Yeah, he's turning 23. Like, it's
he's got some time, man. 22 is
we'll talk about more. I'll say a lot. I have a lot of points about it. We'll say a lot for the offseason. There's a lot.
It's great. We missed you, Joey. Joey, he sent a hashtag Dallas in 6, so I'm assuming that's his pick. Did you mute yourself? Oh. Yeah, so he might Dallas in 6 is what Joey said, so I think
Dallas in 6 for Joe.
Yeah,
I'll say Dallas in 7. I just because I want to see a Game 7.
Yeah.
And you're saying what, Celtics in 6?
Celtics in 6. I think so. I do want to actually. I think Celtics in 7. I think it's going to be 7.
Okay.
But man, that Game 7 in Boston scares the crap out of me, man. It's going to get tight in there. So, I think it's going to be an exciting series. Can't wait. That is it for us tonight. Follow us on social media at The Box of Boys. Slide on those DMs. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on YouTube and Spotify. We very much appreciate that. And the next time we see you guys, there will be 3 games in to the finals. We might have to adjust our schedule because Wednesday's the game. So It's game 3.
Wednesday's a game. Maybe we'll talk. We'll talk offline.
Maybe we'll talk offline.
Talk
But
offline.
until next time, box out.